Hello, welcome back to the East Anglia Hobbit Community podcast. Today, unfortunately, Jack couldn't make it. We've had a little bit of scheduling issues. He's been busy, I've been busy, such is life. So, thankfully, CJ has agreed to step forward and help us film this. Well, record this one. We're not filming it, we're just recording it.
Hi
And
guys.
we will be discussing the escalation event that I ran, which CJ was the winner of. So we're going to go through the scenarios. I should probably get the event pack up. And CJ's going to talk a little bit about his army and why he chose that army. So while I do looking for the scenarios, CJ, do you want to talk about your army and what you took?
Yeah, sure. So I like infantry hordes most of the time. When I was growing up, I had the carry case from Games Workshop with like 108 infantry, and I didn't have any way to transport cavalry, so I just got good at infantry. So goblins have always been a long-standing favourite. And when you said it was an escalation, so we got 350 points to start with, and then all the way up to 800. So I thought, with a lot of armies, if you've got a big nasty hero as your general, especially as we have to keep the same general throughout, then you're going to be left with very little at 350 points. The banner, the free banner, is a nice touch because it actually means that, for example, Ben Camp was thinking of going Rivendell Knights for the whole tournament, and that meant that he didn't have to have like Elrond and two guys. He could actually have the extra knight thanks to the banner. But for Moria, that left some sort of fun to play with because Moria doesn't actually have access to a banner.
No.
And you've got a couple of units in there which actually could really benefit from one. So at higher points values, you've got the beasts come in, which were lent to me by James, which he came to regret. And so having a spider enraged with the ability to re-roll dual rolls is really useful. And the prowlers, they bring the fight value 3 up to 5 depending on bonuses, and so if you can re-roll the spear support, you really increase their chance of being able to win the fight. So anyway, back to the original point. The first scenario was reconnoiter.
Yep.
So Moria's always had a nice trick for this, where you take a marauder and you run it up to the board edge, and then you dismount it, and you run off 4 guys if the warg sticks around. So I thought, right, for the reconnoiter, I'm going to have a nice simple approach where I have the marauder run up to the edge, dismount, get them off, and then the rest of my guys can just die quickly. And I'll take a 7-3 win, something like that.
Yeah.
So I had, for that round, I had Durberts with a Marauder, 4 shields, 7 spear and shields, the free banner, a Prowler and a Bat Swarm, and Groblog with a Marauder, 5 Prowlers and 6 spear and shields.
Two pretty nasty warbands for that points level as well.
Yeah. The problem is this whole strategy went completely out the window as soon as I met my opponent. That was James Richardson, who is a very shrewd player, and he was packing Rohan. He had Theoden, the new Dernhelm, and 12 riders or Royal Guard. So he had me completely done for maneuverability. He can move twice as fast as I can, and shooting. So he could sort of dance around me and shoot me to death until I broke.
Yeah.
So what I had to do was sort of hide my marauders behind bits of terrain and have them sort of hop from piece to piece, taking pot shots. I managed to get a lucky kill on a few horses with marauder shooting, but there was a huge, great rock right in the middle of the board, about the midpoint. So I sort of ran up to the rock, dummying which way I was going to go. And that meant that he had to split up. So he had Dernhelm and some riders on one side and Theoden on the other. So I thought, right, we'll keep Theoden's bonus over there. And the banner went with Theoden. So I thought, right, result, I'm going for the other one. So there was a bit of a... But he had some really damn good shooting.
Yeah, I remember
And
watching that couple of rounds of his shooting while I was walking
yeah,
around.
and Durbert's defense 6. You think he's going to be okay for most of the time, but he's the leader, and he was just rolling tremendously well, getting 6s to wound, and then I took 2 wounds on him. I thought, right, now I'm in trouble.
Yep.
And the fate rolls only saved one of them. So he's now got a VP for wounding my leader. So,
At that point, I believe you were sort of still in the middle of the table as well, weren't you?
yeah. So, realizing that basically I had to use Durbert's might or I was going to lose it, I called a heroic move, which James didn't see the point of because my goblins couldn't reach him. So
Yep.
he let me have it. So what I did was I parted the goblins and slingshot the 2 marauders into the front of his riders.
Right.
So he then had a choice as to he can either abandon those riders to get eaten to death, or he can try and engage me and stop shooting.
Yep.
So he went for charge in and see what happens, which was lucky for me because I was not going to catch him any other way. The problem is you got marauders are still only fight 3, even though they
True.
got 3 attacks versus cavalry. And the first marauder lost his fight and then had its warg killed.
Oh
And
no.
the second marauder won the fight and with 3 attacks on the horse at strength 4 didn't kill it.
Oof.
So
That's incredibly unlucky.
yeah, so already bad stuff going on. The bat swarm, meanwhile, is just sort of hovering around the rock, waiting to pounce. Because he'd now engaged my front line, I was able to just bring the weight of numbers around and sort of get around the back of him. And then it became about whether he could get the heroic move off.
Yep.
And I was quite lucky in that for the next 2 turns, I won the heroic move off. And that allowed me to. He doesn't get any bonuses because he's not charging.
Mm.
No bonuses from Theoden, no cavalry bonuses. And he tried to get Dernhelm around the back to ram raid my banner and Durbert's.
Yep.
And because he then lost the move off, I had Bat Swarm, Groblog, and 4 Prowlers surround Dernhelm. And
Oof.
yeah, +2 to wound from the Prowlers. Splat City.
Yeah, that's nasty.
So I managed to get the other Marauder running off towards the board edge,
Hmm.
but he basically chased it down, shot the warg out with his riders, and so neither meanwhile he had 2 riders running for my board edge.
Hmm.
So the only way to win for me was to break him and then have those riders fail their courage tests, which was basically how it went because it ends at 25%. So
Yep.
I surrounded Theoden on the very last turn and chopped him to pieces in exactly the same manner.
Lovely.
So yeah, defense 7. Take this with my 2-handed axes. Yeah, so it reached 25% before either of us could get any models off. So very squeaky 5-1 victory.
Well, I mean, you played it the way you had to. I was watching. I came around. Obviously, I was walking around. I didn't have many rules queries, but I like to sometimes just watch a game and see
Mm-hmm.
how it's going. And I thought when it was at the midpoint, I was like, oh, if James was maybe a little bit more aggressive here, um, he might have put a bit more pressure on. But because obviously he had the massive advantage in movement, shooting. Um, the scenario really was, in my opinion, favourable towards him. But as you say, you managed to clutch up and you got the 5-1, which was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so picking your 350 points, because I like
Yep.
to. I started, obviously, the rules pack was admittedly I had an idea in my head, but because I started a new job and I was very busy, the rules pack was a little bit rushed. But luckily, a lot of people, including yourself, I say a lot of people, the players that attended,
Mm-hmm.
including yourself, obviously, said that the things that I added into it made it quite interesting for list building, which I enjoy list building. I like theorizing what's going to work, and you know. So, given the scenario
Mm-hmm.
for Reconnoiter and then the warbands you selected, um, do you feel like that you made obviously you won the game, but do you feel
Mm-hmm.
like had you played someone else, do you think you had a really good, interesting, like selection of stuff in there. Like the two Marauders is pretty scary, and then you've got the Bat Swarm. And are you taken Bat Swarms much before with the
Yeah,
Moria? Yeah.
absolutely. Never leave home without a bat swarm.
But you did add some other stuff later on, which we'll talk about when we get to it. Obviously, Durbers for his points is really solid in my opinion, and then the Prowlers with the Moria bonuses are really good.
Yeah, I was more confident in taking a Warband of Prowlers because you to have the free banner.
That's caused me a few TOing controversies, but luckily,
how so?
A couple of people were a bit upset by. I'm not going to mention names. They probably know if they're listening, but they had picked forces where the example being a hero who has a banner already. So Halberd, for instance, just for instance. Now, they said, can I get the points back for my army for the having, because Halberd's already got a banner? And I was like, well, no, because that's not fair on everyone else. You're effectively playing points up. And then, but so are they. And I was like, no, they're having a free war gear option that I chose to give out, and it's on a single wound infantry based model. It's just a free banner. It's the idea of the free banner was that as it's an escalation event, your general is rallying forces to his banner to proceed through his campaign. That was the idea in my head, the theory behind it. And the free banner, especially for armies that can't have them, like yours, for instance, I thought it was a nice little touch. And it perhaps, again, if I'd have spent a bit more time on the rules pack and emphasised the fact that there was going to be a prize for the best custom banner, there might have been a few more entries into that. It was fortunate. It was yourself, Ben, and Callum. Is it
Callum? No.
Yeah, Callum, who had the banners on models that don't normally have banners, which was pretty cool.
Well, you say I had a banner on a model. That is being very generous. What I had was a small mound of green stuff that I had left over from a conversion project that I just stuck a paper clip into and then printed off a little Angmar flag and just said, right, that'll do.
You've been too honest. I was giving you credit. But yeah, so maybe for the next one, because I've discussed doing a de-escalation event next time, I'll actually emphasise the fact that if I do a similar rule, but it might be with a different piece of war gear, I'll emphasise the fact that there's a special prize for the best converted model for that piece of war gear.
I thought that was a nice touch, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's different. It was supposed to be even in the fact that everyone had it, but then when people asked me, what do I do if I take a Ranger Force? I'm like, okay, give it to a normal Dunedain. That's the fairest way to do it. Someone said to me, I think Costas, who didn't end up coming, but he was like, well, if I take the King's Champion, do I have to have 3 banners? I was like, well, that's entirely up to you. You get a free one. He's like, oh, but I already have 2. I said, well, don't take the free one then. If you don't need it, you don't have to take it. It's just there as an option for everyone.
Don't know why you'd complain in a Durin's folk list about having an extra banner, because they need all the rerolls they can get.
I mean, yeah, if you put, especially for the starting points, like if you imagine you have the King's Champion in the middle, and then 6 inches away from him, you'd have 1 herald. 6 inches the other way, you'd have another herald, and then you put your free banner behind him. You probably cover your whole army in that first game.
Exactly.
Anyway, we're windering off. That's probably not the right word.
One other thing on the banner, because you said it's got to go to a 1 wound model somewhere in your army. So I immediately thought, right, when I introduce Druzhag and his beasts in the later ones, I'm going to give it to a Warg because it's got a bigger base, so it'll cover more people.
I did emphasise the 25mm base, though.
Yeah, and then I thought, right, well, what I can do instead is I'll take a Warg Marauder and I'll give it to one of the guys with a bow on the back of the Marauder, because then it's like, well, it's a single wound model. It comes on a 25mm base, and good luck shooting that off. But
True.
It was more in jest than anything else. But yeah,
I might have told you off for poor gamesmanship had you chose that, but you didn't, luckily, so it's fine. So going into the next scenario, we'll quickly go through the scenarios and your list points at each scenario, and then we can talk a little bit about the event itself afterwards. For the next scenario, we jumped up 100 points to 450 points, and we had whole ground. So why don't you talk to us about the changes in your list? Because obviously you couldn't change the heroes, you could change their
No.
war gear options,
Yep.
and you could change the rest of your army, but just not the heroes. So what did you remove and add, and at 450 points?
Well, your tactics change a bit now because it's whole ground, so you don't want your army to get broken and then evaporate like a fart in a jacuzzi. You want to have as many models as possible stay and fight. So I said, right, we're going to bring in a shaman because you combine a shaman with Durbert's. Durbert's automatically passes his courage test, and he's got a 12-inch stand fast, so they
Which
all
is
fit.
really solid for that list against a really good synergy there.
So the idea was we keep the same thing, and then we chuck in a shaman and 3 shields and 3 spear and shields. Just a note about that. I like to put shields on all of my spears because strength 4 is just so common now, and the ability to shield when you're outnumbered really allows you to keep a numerical advantage in place.
And it's a
So
point, right? It
yeah,
makes sense. It's a point. 1 point for a shield. It's really good value. So
you got a goblin going from 5 points to 6 points, so who cares?
exactly.
So I had pretty much exactly the same in Durbert's and Groblock's Warband, but I had like 12 points left over. So
Okay.
what I did was I upgraded 4 shield guys to black shields just to
Nice.
use up the points. Black shield, I'm not sold on because you pay the extra point for courage 3, which is largely irrelevant because you usually have a shaman
Yep.
somewhere in your army.
Yep.
You pay a point for going up to defense 6, which is good, but at the same point, as we say, strength 4 now a lot more common. Defense 6 is not as useful as it used to be. They've gone down from strength 4 to strength 3, which is a big loss, but
Oh,
they also have hatred of dwarves, which is a really... I'm not sold on hatred because you pay the point for it, but unless you're actually in that matchup, it's not useful. But in this case, we just had points left over, so I'm going to have some nice defense 6 to throw in there. And I got up against Kieran Hatton, who's a relative newcomer.
I love
Um,
Kieran.
he's a really nice guy. I
Shout
like
out
him.
to Kieran just because he shouted me
Yeah.
out last time. He's a really nice. Kieran joined the community while I was in my little hiatus period. I believe in December time last year.
hmm
And then when I jumped back in January, I met Kieran at our first league event, and he's a really top lad. Just shout him out for that. So you played Kieran, and he had a very
Yeah.
interesting army. His armies were he painted all of his armies for the tournament in 48 hours, which is mad. You think he painted like 60 models or something? For me, that would take me the whole year. He's done it in 2 days. So fair play to him. But
And that was before contrast paints, which I'll
yeah,
mention later. But
yeah, fair enough. I haven't had a chance to use them yet, but if you have, that'd be great.
they're
Um,
great.
yeah. So Kieran,
Yeah, he had Gothmog's Legion. He's got Gothmog and he's got Guritz and he's got a shed load of Morannons. They're all defense 6, they're all fight 3, they're all strength 4, and I'm just thinking,
my
this is not
favourite.
this is not going well for me. Because
I love Morannons. They are my absolute favourite. 8 points of greatness, in my opinion. But anyway,
yeah, well, so he had 28 models to my 36, and that's not a huge outnumbering, considering he's got a really big killy hero and really good troops. So I was a little bit concerned of matchup. The only sort of hope I had really was break him and then keep his heroes occupied so that the Morannons run away.
yes, the big. I don't think there's a. I could be wrong. I haven't got my book to hand. Is there a
hmm
shaman in the Legendary Legion?
You can have a shaman, and
I thought, yeah.
you can stick him on a warg, but you cannot have Kardush.
That's fair enough. But yeah, yeah. I mean, he didn't have a shaman anyway, so it's relevant. But
hmm
yeah, I mean, that's probably the only way. Well, I mean, especially with his inclusion of Guritz, he can almost pick where he, if he rolls averagely, it really benefits him with 2-3 might heroes and a +1 or -1 depending on what he rolls. I love
Yeah,
Guritz. It's
I
like
had.
I
Sorry,
love Guritz. Sorry, yeah. I took Guritz a couple of times, and he's really saved me a lot of might in that in whole ground.
he really does.
Yeah, it's great. Anyway,
Yeah,
your
so
game.
I had 7 might to his 6, but I thought I'm going to waste a lot of might making sure I don't deploy, behind him,
Hmm.
because he every time I get a Maelstrom deployment, I always wind up deploying when I don't want to. What I mean by that is if your opponent has Guritz or Madril,
Hmm.
and so they can control where they arrive a lot better than you can, it's better for them to go second because they see where you come on, and then basically they can flood an entire army on to ambush whatever you've got. So I had to go first, which
Oh,
meant oh dear. So first thing to do is you roll for the shaman because he's only
hmm
got 1 might point, so he can't really control where he comes on too well. But
no.
but Durbats and Groblog have got 3 might each, so they can come on. They can alter their roll to come on next to the shaman and save his behind.
Yep.
So that was the plan. But I got a very nice slice of luck to start with, which meant that all of my reinforcement rolls were a 4 or higher. So
Nice.
I got to control where all of them came on. So I just had them wedge themselves into a nice little corner, um, which meant that he couldn't come on and trap me or ambush me. But
Right.
he had a drum, by the way, I forgot to mention. So not only has he got heroic march, he's got a damn drum, which means that he can just zip 12 inches a turn into the middle and
Yeah,
then wait for me.
I believe he got Sam Huddy with that game one. I think Sam obviously was playing dwarfs,
Mm.
and I think he was pretty much at his 12-inch line within 3 turns. It it was disgusting, but yeah, I mean I never really considered taking the drum, but in for the scenarios that we had, it's actually a really good addition. So
Yeah, I agree. Mobility is quite useful in your scenarios. Does a drummer count as a hero? So does that mean he's got to keep it for the rest of the scenarios?
I believe it has a fate point,
Yeah,
so I believe he did keep it anyway.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Right,
It's an
so
independent hero. I could be wrong. I haven't got any books with me, so if
I think you're right.
I'm spouting, please don't be angry with me. Comment section.
Right, so yeah, the shaman come on, Durberts and Groblog come on next to him. Now this was the kind of Rohan village. So
Oh, I'll pause you there.
yep,
Big thank you to James because he built all that scenery for that table, and I believe some of it has been not donated because Jack's paid him for the materials, but um, James built it for club basically. So thank you again, James. You're a top bloke, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Right, go on. Sorry,
cheers,
carry on.
James. No problem. So it meant that he could basically have Guritz and his warband log jam itself between two houses, and luckily enough, exactly such that he would be within 6 inches of the middle, and I wouldn't be when I engaged his battle line, which was a good strategy. But he then had Gothmog and his warband try and do the same sort of 90 degrees to the left of that.
Mm.
But what I pointed out to him afterwards was if he'd used that warband to jam itself between the same house and a different house, then I'd have had no way around to trap him to get in to get anywhere near the middle.
Right.
But he didn't want to move his models more than 6 inches away from the center. He
Okay.
wanted to because he wanted to have all of his troops within the objective. So, but what you tend to do if your opponent has higher fight value, you're better off dice ways engaging him in loads of one-on-one combats,
Mm.
which is better than if you go 2-on-2 because if he's got a higher fight value, then it works out in his favor. So I had one warband, which was the Prowlers with the spear supports and the banner behind them, hoping that the two-handed axes with the fight 3 would do some damage, and luckily they did. but I'm going to point out here that Gothmog, if there's an opposite to an MVP, was exactly that. Because I had 2 Marauders, so I had 4 shots, which are, they hit on 6s if you move, and then I just sunk all of my shots into Gothmog and killed his Warg on the first turn of trying. So his killing power was really reduced. But then when Gothmog ran into combat, he won 1 combat the entire game.
Right.
And when he did, he was fighting my Prowlers, so defense 4, so he needs 4s to kill me.
Yep.
And on 4 dice, he got 3 highest. So he just did nothing the whole game, except for that annoying "the time of the orc has come" thing, which resulted in quite a lot of dead goblins. The ability to reroll all to wound rolls is really strong, so it's a good rule.
It's great it's great in the Legion because it's like it's a much bigger bubble.
Yeah. But what really sort of won it was the fact that I kept him interested with 2 shield wall lines, and then I snuck a Marauder around the side of a house. It took 2 or 3 turns to get there, but once it did, I then jumped the Bat Swarm out from behind a nearby house and just had the Bat Swarm and the Marauder tag team. The first thing they ran into was the drummer,
Right.
munched him to death. Next turn, they run into the Banner Bearer. He's now dead. Now that he can't re-roll dual rolls, I'm starting to win a lot more combats and drag him down with numbers.
Yeah.
And fair credit to Kieran, his dice rolling to win and to wound was absolutely horrendous.
I when I came over to your game, I believe Kieran had, as you say, pretty much an L over the objective, and I was like, it's Morannons versus Goblins. That should be it. That should be a GG. And then, fair play to yourself for manoeuvring in a way that opened up the game a little bit more and gave yourself the opportunity to sneak some models in there and cause a bit of havoc. But when I came over, I was like, he's literally in the perfect position. Maybe potentially, if it was me, I'd have maybe moved a little bit further over the objective because he had the maneuverability with marching and the drummer. But when I come over, I was like, well, Kieran's in a great position. So fair play to yourself for moving him around and whatnot. So,
cheers. Yeah, I mean, in the end, I think I lost about 5 models. That was how bad his roll to win was. He charged Gurritz into one of my Marauders, and I thought, right, here we go. He's fight 4, and he's got might points, and he's got a spear support. But he boshed that, and the Marauder just bit a wound off him. And then the next turn, I got the charge off. He boshed his roll again, floored Gurritz, and then just, you're rolling 8 dice on the charge to wound at strength 4. So yeah, both of his heroes were completely useless, in fairness to him.
I mean, I've played Gurritz a couple of times, and with a Moran and spear support, just going through troops, he's not bad, especially being strength 5 and having a 2-handed pick, so he can potentially kill pretty much anything on 4s. He's great at just going through troops, but it's a dice game, right? So if your dice are cold, it hurts you sometimes. So,
and then we had Lords of Battle, which
so a bit of a bigger jump up. It was 600 points, and the idea of Lords of Battle third was that you've established a bit of your army at this point, and you're fighting your first big sort of conflict that you would know about. And I like Lords of Battle. I think it's a good scenario. It's a little bit less to think about. It's kind of just kill each other. But obviously, you always have to think about something whilst you're playing the game. But I thought having like recon and then hold ground is a little bit less intensive, maybe. But let's talk about what you added for the 150 points and your game itself.
Okay. So Lords of Battle is, as you say, it's a really fun scenario because you're just writing down the kill tally and you're sort of racing each other to see who can get the most. But when you've got squishy goblins, it's always and well, I'll say credit to your selection as well, because you've got hold ground, you want loads of models. You got capture and control last, you want loads of models. You got Lords of Battle, you don't necessarily want loads of models.
Well, I always feel that if you have a couple of scenarios where it benefits having a horde army, you always need something to counterbalance that.
Yeah, I agree.
Lords of Battle is the counterbalance. So yeah, that was the idea, and it also again to fit the theme of trying to make it a story with your army as opposed to just being pick 4 armies at these points and we'll play these scenarios. So anyway, carry on. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, sure. So I had my Durberts, my Grogblog, and my Shaman, and then I decided the only thing I'm gonna do. I toyed around with 2 ideas. One was a monster mash, 5 cave trolls. Yeah, and just I spoke with I was talking to Jasmine Tetley, who's a great player in the GBHL. She went and represented England Team 2 at the European competition, and she's
The
a great.
EAHC.
Yeah,
No,
she's
the
ETC.
ETC. That's the one. Yeah.
She's a great Moria player, and she said, you know what? If you had 5 cave trolls with a shade, that would just be absolutely horrendous.
Oh, that would be horrendous.
I said, yeah, but it's no ally. So, but I thought, right, what can I do to add some killing power? So I then toyed with the idea of upgrading all of the goblins to black shields to get the defense 6. But as we say, it's D6 is not as worth it, and basically I think the model's a bit overpriced for what it brings.
Okay.
So I thought, right, we're going to play with some new toys, and I got in touch with James and said, have you got Drizag, the Beast Caller? He said, yes. So can I have Drizag and some bats and some spiders and a warg and just have some fun with that? And he said, yeah, sure, mate, no problem.
Oh, nice.
And then he drew me for Lords of Battle at the point where I introduce his beasties. And and I also threw in a captain because I had a certain number of points left over, and what I could either do was fill in Druzhag's warband or get the captain. And there are 2 points to that. In Lords of Battle, your heroes get might points back for killing other heroes.
Yep.
So with a captain, that can swing either way. But with the main reason you take it is that it gives you heroic march. Because Lords of Battle, if your opponent's got a shooty army, they can sit right on the back of the table, and your goblins have got to amble 5 inches a turn, getting shot to death.
Yep.
So he's in there. Now James he's a really good player, and he does sort of fluffy lists. So he had the Grey Company Legendary Legion, which I hadn't played before. So immediately I'm looking at this going, right, he's got Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, Halbarad, and 5 Rangers, and I've got 42 squishy goblins, and this is Lords of Battle. And I was thinking, right, the only thing I can do here is let him win the kill tally, or the wound tally, but I will try to kill his leader, break him, and get a narrow win that way.
Yeah.
Because I'm the opposite of horrendously outnumbered here, and it's not to my favour. But so it worked out pretty much as I thought it would, where he set up Legolas and the Rangers and Halbarad on the back line and proceeded to shoot me to death. I had the captain do 2 marches, so he's out of might, but I'm chugging up 8 inches a turn across the battlefield.
Yeah.
But his shooting was beyond hopeless. It really was. He didn't kill a thing until I was within 5 inches of his face.
So he had 3 shots from Leggy, 5 Rangers with might and bows, and then Halbrad with might and a bow, and he killed nothing.
Killed nothing.
It's horrendously bad luck.
I did line it up so that all of my prowlers with their defense 4 were hiding somewhere at the back, behind about 3 rows of guys with spear and shield, or shield meaning that he was wounding on 6s for the most part. But yeah, his rangers were just like, and now I'm going to shoot with this one. I need a 3. That's a 2. Next one. That's a 1. That's a 2. It was horrible for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, once I actually got to within the charge range of him, I left my warg a little bit exposed on the edge, and he just had a ranger shoot that. But once I got within range of him, I was like, right, for the first time ever, his Drizag, I'm going to enrage this spider.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just run the spider straight into 2 ranges because I'd lost priority, so he couldn't countercharge. And then I didn't charge with a bat swarm. I just put a bat swarm close enough to the edge that he wouldn't be able to back away with the ranger.
Right.
And you've got 4 dice on an enraged spider plus the banner reroll. Got the 6 because now the spider is fight 6, strength 7, 4 attacks, and with poison rerolls.
It's grim.
Splatted both rangers on the first turn. So that kind of set the precedent. So James now has a choice. He can either charge forward and not get trapped against the back of the board, but potentially allow me to come around the back and trap him anyway, or he sits at the back and uses the edge of the board to prevent me getting numbers in. He decided to charge headlong in with Aragorn and Gimli and Legolas, but this is the point where I figured out basically bat swarms halve your fight value after heroic strikes, which means that the most you can get to is fight 5, basically. So all you've got to do is double team a bat swarm with either Durberts or Groblog, who have heroic strike, and literally the 3 hunters can do nothing about it. So you combine those 2, and then you stick some prowlers in behind with 2-handed axes with +2 to wound. And Legolas was completely surrounded and about to die, so he calls a heroic combat with Gimli, who needed to kill 2 defense 5 goblins and got 5-2-1. So he didn't manage to get there. And Aragorn was going to be trapped by one of his rangers with the banner. And so the banner-bearing ranger called a heroic combat to try and move out of the way. He lost that as well. But I didn't have the decency to kill him, so it meant Aragorn still had nowhere to back away to. And give credit to James that he said, right, this ranger counts as a banner. Josh has said that's okay. And I said, oh, that's fine, but that means no -1 for the dual roll. And he goes, oh no, I will do the -1 for the dual roll.
Oh, fair, because someone else had asked me about a ranger list. I didn't know James. James had sent me his list, but on the day I completely forgot. So I said to him, "You can have one guy. He will count as a banner, but you won't have the negative for not having the banner." But fair play to James if he did that. It's good sportsmanship from him. So.
So yeah, Legolas, surrounded by Durberts, bat swarm, and a couple of prowlers, dead. Aragorn, Groblog, a bat swarm, and some prowlers, wounded. All the other rangers just dragged down under weight of numbers. So originally, where I thought I'm going to lose the wound tally, I was just racing out ahead because he just couldn't win combats. So yeah, I mean, eventually I managed to table him just because of that combo. Heroic Strike and Bat Swarm, you can't do anything, I've won, and now you're dead. And I realised this isn't very fair, this isn't very fun for my opponent, to be honest, but it is pretty much the only way I could have won that scenario and that matchup.
Well, I mean, he had all hero, and he had 2 really good fighters in Gimli and Aragorn, and then all the Rangers have 2 attacks. So it's as you say, perhaps the combination is pretty nasty, but fair play to James for being on 2 wins at that point as well, given the scenarios and the army that he was using.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
and the other point, when you call the heroic strike with Durberts or Groblog, then you kill the guy, and then because of the scenario special rule, you've killed a hero, you get the might point back that you just used to strike. So it's just like, here's some more salt for that wound.
Yeah, it's a pretty nasty combo.
Yeah.
And then finally,
Capture and Control
at 800 points. So it was originally domination.
Right, okay.
and then I actually prefer capture. It's a little bit more. Well, in my opinion, it's a little bit more tactical because I could be wrong. People could tell me I'm wrong, but
No, I
you
agree.
you flip you take control of the objective, and then it's, do I go and see what else I can get, or do I sit on my ones that I've got already? So it's essentially kind of a similar scenario, obviously, but there is, you can be extremely aggressive and get everything, or you can play the game a little bit more. I've got my three. I'm technically winning. Let's see what
Hmm.
happens. So, again, what did you add for your 200 points this time? Because it was 800 points.
Hmm.
And talk to us about your game.
Right, so I've got Derber, Scroblog, Captain, Shaman, and Drizag from the previous rounds. The only
Yep.
hero that was added this time was a Black Shield Shaman, which I've never used before.
Hmm.
But I was saying to Sam Huddy at some point before the tournament, and shout out to Sam, wonderful man. He said, "Oh, why don't you try out Black Shield Shaman? I don't have one." He's like, "Here, you can use mine." Excellent. Because Black Shield's the Shatter ability, I always thought you're paying 50 points for 3 shots at this Shatter spell, and you really need it to count. But if your opponent's got any kind of will points, then surely it's pointless. But then I was chatting to Barney Menzies, who is also a spectacular Moria player, and he said, "Oh no, no, no! The Shatter is for your opponent's banner, because then he can't do anything about it. Here's a 3+, you now have no banner.
Yeah.
That evens the odds for the fight for your goblins."
Oh, true. And I think it's also not play. I'm not a Moria player in any way, shape, or form. But if I took something that had it's a threat range of, oh, you've got a nice Andoril, maybe I'll shatter that at some point. No, don't do it. But
Yeah.
as you say, if they've got will, maybe not. But it's a little bit for banners. It's really good, and then for like a deterrent towards a Gil-galad or an Aragorn or
Mm.
Boromir's Horn, for instance. Um,
Oh, that'd be good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Fellowship Boromir with 1 will point. I'm
Hmm.
going to shatter your hall.
Yep.
Right.
So you added your shaman.
Yep.
Did you add any other? What was your warband
Mm,
composition?
no other heroes, so I just fleshed out. I dropped Marauders for Lords of Battle because I had the beasts come in.
Yep.
Got 2 Marauders back, and then you got Groblog with his Prowlers and 6 Spear and Shield. I haven't mentioned the reason you give the Prowlers to Groblog is because he has the Mithril Crown, so on a 4+ in the combat phase.
Yep.
He gives a fight value increase. So Prowlers are fight 3, they can go up to fight 4 because of Groblog, and then if you trap your opponent, they're fight 5, and suddenly that's really, really useful.
It's really strong. Yeah.
So then 6 shield, 6 spear and shield with the captain. The shamans have both got 3 shield, 3 spear and shield. Druzhag now has 2 wargs, but also 2 bats and 2 spiders. So
Nice.
I've got like 61 models at this stage.
Ugh.
So yeah, I thought, right, capture and control, this is going to be fairly good. I'm going to flood the board. I'm going to tag all of the. Um, and I said to my opponent that I drew was Ben Camp,
Mhm.
and he runs Numenor. So at this level, he's
Yeah,
got.
he's been
He's,
championing Numenor for a while now.
and he's
So
pretty effective at how he uses it as well. So he's got Elendil on horse, he's got Isildur on horse, which means he can't have the ring, thank God.
no.
He also had 2 captains. What he didn't have them on horse with lance, which is what you'd usually do with Numenor. He said he wanted more models on the board, so he just had them on foot, one with heavy armor, one without.
I guess that makes sense for the scenario, like having more numbers.
Hmm.
But then the potential killing power of a Numenorian captain with a lance is also very good. So
Yeah, I mean Isildur and Elendil have enough killing power between, especially Elendil with the 3 heroic combats, because
oh
they're
yeah,
just
I,
carving through you.
yeah. And then I
I,
played a Numenor line at Destination of Stockport,
hmm
and I think at one point I had far more orcs than there was Numenorians, but I just couldn't get the heroes, and they slapped me about. So yeah, Elendil is horrendously good, with the free heroic combat every turn.
Well, bat swarms have got the weakness of courage 2. So if your opponent is terrifying, like any major elf hero or something of that nature, then you struggle to get in. But Elendil and Isildur, not terrifying. So Ben basically had about 3 warriors for each of them, whose only purpose in the whole game was stand right behind Elendil and Isildur and make sure the bat swarm doesn't get in. Because as soon as I could do that, he was in trouble. Now, when we were drawn against Ben, I said, "Look, would you mind if we played on the Moria board? Just because I'd love to play my goblins on the Moria board and have some fun with that." He said, "Fine." But
I'll add to that. Obviously, it was a super casual. This was the table 1 game, but it was a bit more casual than that, and we didn't have specific tables for. I didn't go table 1. This player. I didn't. I called out the pairings, but I was happy for you guys to just sort of play where you both agreed to, obviously. So, and if there was an issue in that, someone didn't want to agree, I would then give you a table to play on. But
no problem.
It didn't arise. It was just a casual event. So, yeah, carry on. So Moria table.
No,
sorry.
yeah. But the problem with that was that there's sort of 2 cliffy bits in the corners, and then there's 2 giant rocky bits in the middle of the board. So what I'd actually done was given him a couple of choke points to wedge a shield wall in that I then couldn't surround.
Yeah.
So unwittingly gave him a little bit of advantage in that, and he did exactly what he should have done, and just stuck Isildur and his entire warband between the 2 crags, and I couldn't sort of trap it. But because I had 6 warbands and he had, 1, 2, 3, 4, and he had to deploy first, it meant that he put 1 there, and I basically put the shaman warbands down first because they've only got 6 guys with them.
Yeah.
And I put them right in the middle, so he's got no idea which way I'm going to go. So he then deploys Elendil and 18 guys on my right, and I was like, right, I'm going to ignore all of them, and all of my guys are now over here to attack Isildur. Yeah, he then puts all of his bow fire on the sort of cliff on his corner to put me off sneaking around. And
it was an interesting choice for me, that one. 1 to have a warband just to bows, and then 2 to just put them way back field.
Yeah. Well, they were covering his back objective, but because in capturing control, you more or less deploy in each other's faces.
True.
It's good bow fire is not so useful because you can't shoot into combat. But first turn, Druzhag enrages a spider, and I run it straight into Ben's captain, which he called Anarian. Hopefully we'll get a proper profile for him soon. And because the other spiders have got swift movement and things, I can just go, right, I'm crawling up the side of the cliff, and now I'm back down and I'm right behind you. So I used the spider to nip around the back of his line and a bat swarm to take out his spearman. So the captain's now trapped. The enraged spider now deals 5 wounds, and the captain's gone in 1 go because captain can't strike, and I'm fight 6 with an enraged spider. But he's got Elendil riding really hard around the back of the rock to get back into combat, having deployed in the wrong place. And I realised, right, I'm going to have to win the heroic move off to get my spider and the bat out of trouble now. And I lost it. Which would be, I don't want to whinge too much about bad luck, but 5 consecutive heroic moves off, I lost, so it just made things really difficult. And Elendil, with his 3 heroic combats of amazingness and destruction, ran into the bat swarm, knocked it over because it's infantry, killed it, moved into my spider, knocks that over, kills that as well. So, but it's not as if the beasts would have been too much help, to be honest, because Druzhag's first cast was clearly, too much for him, because his remaining casts needing a 3 were 1, 2, 1, 1.
Yeah.
So I had to use a might point on the 2, and that was to try and get an enraged warg to knock some warriors back from stealing my back objective. I only killed 1 out of the 2, and then the strength 10 hit takes him out.
Yep.
So anyway, I then get the Black Shield Shaman to sort of sneak around the cliff to try and take out his banner. Not that it matters, because Ben was rolling 6s for every combat, and because he's fight 4, I couldn't do anything. And because I couldn't get around the back of him because of the terrain, I couldn't trap him, so my fight value was stuck at 2 or 3 at best.
Okay.
But Blood of Numenor is so their army bonus is +1 courage, but also inbuilt into that list is, if you're within such distance of, I believe it's Elendil and Isildur, you get a free resistant to magic.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
So I chucked 2 dice on a shatter at the banner, and luckily that was enough. But it meant I had 1 will point left on him, and I had all of his heroes with magic resistance. So I then rolled a 2 to try and shatter the other captain's sword, and I was like, I'm not going to spend the might point, because he's got a will point and a resistant to magic point. So
Right.
I've got a 1 in 12 chance that he rolls low enough that I actually succeed, and even then he's got might points. So I was like, I'm going to save the might for the heroic move, because I needed to stop Elendil and Isildur keep charging on the horses. As I said, I was losing all the heroic moves off, so he was charging every turn, he was knocking everything over and killing it all, because Master Forge sword and strength 5, and all my goblins pate on the floor.
Yeah.
So meanwhile I send Groblog and his prowlers sneaking around the side of a rock to take the back objective.
Right.
I was surprised that he didn't jump the bowman down earlier and just form a screen to prevent me getting there. As it turns out, they arrived a bit too late to stop Groblog from stealing the back objective.
Right.
But I was dying really quickly at this stage, so we both had 1 objective each that was firmly under control, and it was going to come down to whether we could sort of scrum each other off the central 3.
So, I think going into the last turn, if my memory is correct, Ben was actually in control of the majority of the objectives as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. So it was a desperate last turn of killing stuff. So yeah, the Marauder I sent with Groblog's warband to capture the back objective runs into combat. Ben rolls a 6 and then rolls a 5 to kill the warg. So I'm running a theme of Marauders, apart from when he ran down Guritz, obviously. But
yeah.
but the Marauders didn't really pull their weight too much in this tournament. But that's okay. They're a lot more fragile now. In the previous edition, it used to be it's a 3-wound battle tank that just runs around the battlefield. But now you can kill the warg separately. It's a lot.
Hello. Okay, I have a quick technical issue there. We'll be right back. Okay, guys, welcome back. So I'm sorry about that. We had a slight technical issue. I couldn't actually hear CJ.
Sorry.
Where were we? Can't remember.
Right, so we have 4 objectives being fought over in the last turn. So really could go either way. So Groblog's fighting Ben's archers on the back objective. But the warg's been killed. The Black Shield has failed to cast again, but I had 1 bit of luck in the middle of the board where Elendil finally boshed a duel roll, and he said, right, I've got to spend his remaining 2 might points to win the combat, otherwise I'm going to lose the horse.
Right.
So that's what he did, but it meant that he had no might left in that area of the battlefield where I had 3. So over the next 3 turns, I was able to use heroic move to hold his heroes in place and surround the remainder of that warband, and then push Ben past his break point, although I wasn't far behind. So the time for the last round was called, and there's 4 objectives being fought over. On my right, I've got a goblin who's snuck around the rocky hill to have a one-on-one fight with the only archer that's guarding it.
Yep.
So I have my guy just shield him away, force him to back away an inch. I've claimed that objective.
Yep.
Nearest me, Druzhag is now in hand-to-hand combat with a pair of goblins against two Numenorians who'd snuck around to steal it. Druzhag loses the fight, but I backed him into the marker, so he's contesting it. Neither of us get the point.
Yep.
Nearest Ben, Groblog calls a heroic combat, needs to win the combat to push Ben's archer off the objective. His crown worked for only the third time that whole day. And the tied fight value allowed Groblog to win the roll-off and claim the objective, so that was quite lucky. And now Durbert, because he's got no might left in the middle of the table, meant I could jump Elendil with a bat swarm, with some prowlers, with Durberts, and you know what happens next.
Yep.
So he's munched, and then Durbert takes all of those guys over to the middle of the table, where on a rocky ledge, Ben has got his only other captains sat on the objective. So the only way I can contest it or steal it is to win the combat and then try and kill him.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened. So in the last turn, it swung to a 10-1 victory to me, which was
full swing.
Yeah. So to be honest, my luck was incredibly dipoled for that day. I either had amazing luck or completely catastrophic luck with very little in between. It was just lucky that I managed to use the moments of luck well enough. So then I managed to come first, and you had some nice tasty prizes out for selection, and I went for the Gold King of Abrakan because it's a gorgeous model. I've always wanted to paint it, but I don't play Harad really, so I've never justified getting it for myself.
The choices behind the selection for prizes, obviously we have a budget for the events. We sell a ticket for the day, as it were, and then some of that goes to the venue for us being there. Some of it goes back into the pool for the club itself. Me and Jack have been getting new scenery and new mats for tables and stuff with that money. And then obviously about half of it goes on prizes. Now, unfortunately, we had a lot of dropouts, so I had to find 5 prizes for about £40. And I kind of picked the prizes. I thought if I was to have these prizes if someone was to start a new army or to expand an existing army, I think the prizes I picked were actually quite good for that. So you had, I think it was Forlong and Angbor, yep. And you had 3 Rangers of the North. You had the Golden King, which obviously you won, and then there was a Durbers. Then for the most sporting prize, there was obviously a certificate and a free entry to the next league event. So it had a £10 value to it. So that was the prizes for the event.
If I remember rightly, my mate Callum Royal basically swept.
He cleaned up. Yeah, he had best banner, most sporting, best painted army. He definitely got a bit of a sweep. It was a bit unfortunate. I don't know if he won a game actually, which is.
I think he managed to win one of them. He said, and while I've got the opportunity, I'll just say, because Callum's somebody I met about a year and a half ago. I live in the southeast of the UK, and there is nobody around to play. Right. I just used to do painting sessions at my local Warhammer shop, and they said, "Oh, you should come to this games night down at a railway store." And I met Callum there, and I got him. He was already playing Lord of the Rings to a small extent before I met him, but the friendship we struck up, he really got into it, and he is a absolutely astonishing painter. And
his army was beautiful.
He sits with me and he teaches me, because I suck at highlighting. Like I really can't tell which bits to do in the lighter color, whatever. But he's so generous with his time, and whenever I say I'm going to a tournament, may I practice my list against you, he's always up for that. So just a fantastic hobby guy.
Oh, fair play. Well, fair play to Callum then. Hobby hero for the week. Um, so that's the event.
Mhm.
From my point of view of running, I haven't run an event by myself for a long time. And it was actually my first time doing a spreadsheet, which wasn't as daunting as I made myself think it was previously. From me, I just everyone that attended, thank you for not being gamey. It was a really fun day. I had a lot of fun seeing people's armies at the different points levels, and how those games played out. And I think I only had two rules queries, which is always nice.
Mm.
Um, one of which was, "Did you check the rule book?" No, check it. They found the answer, funnily enough. And the second one was a Gondor at War related, I think, query. And again, it was in the rule book, in the Gondor at War book. So again, not too much for me to do from a TO point of view, but it was really nice seeing people's armies and seeing how some of their games went and the swings in the last couple of turns for people. It was good fun. Did you enjoy it, CJ?
I had huge fun with this one. I particularly enjoyed the list building. As you say, Theory Hammer is a fun aspect to the hobby, and just trying to there's the struggle, especially for how do I build a Moria list that can win Lords of Battle. I enjoyed that aspect a huge amount, and then when I was actually there, if you go to an East Anglia League, all of the guys are really laid back. There's some really fun armies there, to the point where I was wondering, Moria's probably not the most competitive faction out there, but I did wonder if maybe I'd specialized my lists a little too much. Maybe I should have been a bit more relaxed about it. But I just find fun in the list building and trying to come up with the best combinations.
I don't think it was um, overly competitively built. It was a solid list, and you covered the basis for the scenarios.
Mm,
So I don't think
fair
it
enough.
was. I wouldn't worry about that, mate.
Okay.
Okay, I think we've covered the event. Thank you for talking so much whilst through all that.
Sorry.
Because no, not at all. It's good.
Yeah.
I know. Shout out to Tom. I know he likes to listen while he's driving his lorry, so he'll be loving the fact that we've already spoke for over an hour, and we've not even got into the questions that people have left for us for this one. So I did a post on our Facebook page. If you go on Facebook, type in the East Anglia Hobbit SBG community. You can't actually find us currently. We had to put the group into secret. Um,
Oh yeah.
but hopefully, by the time this is recorded and we put it up, we should be able to turn the page back to uh, you have the ability to find it and then you apply and we'll accept you. So it's the East Anglia Hobbit SPG community on Facebook. We also have a YouTube channel. If you're watching this, obviously we have a YouTube channel, which is also the East Anglia Hobbit community. Um, so the questions that we had for me and Jack, I'm going to save for me and Jack because people,
Mhm.
I don't know if people want to hear Jack's specific opinion, but I did another post asking for questions for me and CJ. Again, I don't
Mhm.
know if they're specific or it's just people didn't see the Jack post and they did see the CJ post, so they put questions here. So it's an interesting one, and we both could probably talk about it for a little while. So
Mhm.
I might save it. We'll go through some of the ones that we can answer maybe a little bit quicker.
Mhm.
So shout out to Tom again. He's left a question saying, "What's your favourite faction profile and why?" And then I asked him, "Oh, that's a tough one. Can we do a choice for good and evil?" And he obliged and said we can. So CJ, over to you, mate.
Yeah.
Your favourite faction profile and why
Ooh.
for good and evil?
Um. Well, my go-to armies because of the infantry horde playstyle that I do are Moria, because they've got so many options and so many combos and so much synergy. It takes a while to get used to using some of it, but once you do, it can be really fun. You sort of flip these combos out, like you get the strike and the bat swarm.
Hmm.
So when I had to, but some tournaments need a good force as well. So I thought, what's the closest equivalent for good? And I settled on Lake Town, which is
Yep.
infantry horde, but with the difference that you actually get a nice big killy hero, so you don't dread when they say contest of champions, and you just
And
okay.
a wizard if you so need. as
Oh
well.
yeah.
You get Bard and a Gandalf.
Yeah, once you get to like 700, 750 points and you've got Bard and Gandalf and 50 odd troops, it's a really
It's
strong
it's grim.
yeah, and Bard with his triple action strength 4 bow,
Hmm.
just horrendous. That really helped me out at what was it? 600-point GBHL event I went to.
Hmm.
But I had Callum Edens as one of my opponents. I had to play him twice because we played in round 5, drew, which meant for the final round we had to play each other again. And both times, Bard just shoots through the front rank, through the second rank, takes out Thranduil's horse, shoots through the front rank, second rank takes out Thorin's goat.
Oh,
He was not a happy bunny,
I can imagine.
as he shouldn't be. So those probably are my two favorite ones to play, but
Okay.
I like to try out other stuff. I don't know if I got a favorite profile. There's loads of stuff that's changed since the new edition. Like Radagast has become a lot more uh, versatile because he's got the Nature's Wrath, regardless of whether he's on the Eagle or not. Círdan's gone from never used to everywhere. Um,
Yeah, both are vastly improved.
mm,
I
what
used to
about
play.
you?
I used to play Raddy anyway for fun on an Eagle War on the sled,
Hmm.
and he was always fun to use, but he's definitely a lot more competitive now.
Yeah.
Um, favorite faction profile. So for evil, um, I only have two evil armies. I don't play Goblin Town anymore just because uh,
Yeah, they took a hit, didn't they?
I can't do the cheesy combos that I used to like to do before. So I would
Yeah.
play them again. I think at lower points they're still very viable, especially with the Goblin King. He's still very good.
Yeah.
But I just haven't had an opportunity to. I need a 350 point event that I'm playing in um, as opposed to running. So maybe for battle companies or something, I think they could be quite fun because you just get a lot of them. Um, but
They don't escalate very well, do they? Because once you've got the scribe, Grinner, a captain, the Goblin King, and you've filled out their war bands, and that's still only about 400 points.
well, I think the
Um,
Goblin King can take 24 goblins though.
yeah, but
So
they're all 4 points
I mean
each.
they're
So
cheap. Yeah, it's still only what 20. It's still not a lot of points.
yeah.
Um, So yes, that's it's not really a viable option for me at the moment. So I've been playing Mordor a lot for the last probably 3 years, and I definitely think that their army bonus has made them very good.
Mm,
Unfortunately, or depending how you look at it, I don't tend to play normal orc spam. I like to have my Morannons. So I guess Mordor is my favorite evil faction.
hmm.
There are a few I like aesthetically. I really like Harad or Serpent Horde, as they're called now, Serpent Horde.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also really like Easterlings, but I played Gondor for a long time, and they're very similar. Just one's not a good
Mm,
army, I guess. So Mordor's my favorite evil faction. My favorite profile from that book, I guess that army faction. It'd be very difficult to pick one. I'm a big fan of. It depends on a lot of varying factors, but I guess Shagrat is very good. Um,
hmm.
I want to champion him for a bit and use him for a bit because I think he's very good. Um, but I think my favourite profile is probably just I suppose at the moment it's probably Gothmog. He's very good, very good.
I mean,
And
how good is Mordor now? Because especially with the Gondor at Warbook, you got Guritz, Goroth, and Zagdush
actually,
as
I'm
heroes.
lying. Goroth is my favourite profile at the moment. He's so fun to
Mm.
use. It's like, oh, okay, I'll chuck him in. Fight five. If he had three attacks, he'd be incredibly good. The
Oh
two
yeah,
attacks,
that'd be too good.
the two attacks is a little bit but you give him a spearman, it's the same thing.
And a
The
banner.
fact that he's burly with a two-handed weapon and strength 5 is so much fun. I,
Yeah,
I
and
used
he can strike.
I used him at the Escalation of Stockport for the first time, and I was just chucking him into other captains. He's like, "Yep, you're dead," and then you're dead, and then you're dead. It was a lot of fun.
Hmm.
Uh, so
And
Goroth,
And then
Yeah, so
Kardush has been re-released as well.
yeah, I picked him up, obviously.
Yep.
I picked up Kardush and 6 Stalkers just because I really wanted the models. And I think they're not awful for their points value. Um, I definitely want to try and get them in at some point. I'm not sure where they fit in. They're not really a frontline troop, but maybe like they could sit on the sides of my warbands and then wrap round and kill spears or something. But
Yeah, I mean, if you have 4 points left over, then you just take 2 Morannons and say, right, I'm upgrading you to Stalkers, and
yeah,
there's of 2 attacks, and the ability to hide in terrain and be unseen,
they're
all
really
that
good for
nonsense.
sitting on objectives. Like if there's an event where you've got domination or ones where you can sit your objectives in trees or buildings and then put a stalker in there and they can't be shot or charged within until we get within 6 is really good.
That
Uh,
does sound good. And
so,
Kardush, I can't say enough about because he's 10 points more than a shaman, but he's got regenerating will points. He can give will points to ring wraiths,
Wraiths.
but moreover, it's the 3+ fireball that's just so annoying.
Well, moreover, it's the fact that he can lead a warband of 12 as opposed to 6.
Yes, absolutely yes.
Because my biggest gripe with taking shamans, although you need it because of the aura of dismay that is very heavy meta at the moment,
Hmm.
is the fact that I have to spend 50 points and I can only bring 6 troops, but now I can spend 60 points and bring a full warband. Um,
Yep.
is really good. And then going back to Tom's question, because again, kind of gone all
Hmm.
over the place.
Sorry.
My favorite, no, not no need to apologise. I'm sure people are, if they're still listening, they're enjoying our rambling, so it's fine. Um, Good army. It's very difficult. I love Minas Tirith. It's my first army that I ever played.
Hmm.
Haven't played them much this year because you're all gonna yell at me. I still haven't painted the metal models I stripped months ago. Um, is it? I love Rohan. I love the idea of Rohan.
Hmm.
It's from a gaming point of view. I love the fact that the elves and the Numenorians have all got a lot better because they weren't seen as much, and now they're obviously they're a lot more relevant.
I mean,
Uh,
how nasty are the elven heroes now? You got Elrond, Glorfindel, and Gilgalad, and you don't want to play any of them. They're just so good.
well, yeah, I mean they were good before, but because everyone could strike, it made them less good.
Mm.
Now you've got to hope that when you get that one model in your or 2 models in your army that can actually fight them, that you actually kill them. Otherwise, they're just going to go through.
Mm.
Yeah, they are very good, especially given Elrond is very good with his Rivendell Knights because you can do the whole runaway shooty thing. Then when you feel like you've got a numerical advantage, you run in, knock everyone down, and you probably kill a lot of stuff.
Yep, you got lances and you got fight 5. So if you roll a 6, you've won.
Yeah, they're very, very strong. Favorite good army, probably Minas Tirith. Favorite profile from that army, I always like Pippin. He's not very good, but
Mm.
I just like him. We'll go with that one, especially his new model. His new model's lovely.
Mm.
Next question. All right, we'll save Sean's first question, but he has sent a second question.
What's that?
So how about discussing what we'd want in a proper siege? So obviously siege is part of the game. It's not
Yep.
seen very often, but myself and
Hmm.
Sean about 3 or 4 years ago now, we had a really good game of essentially the battle for Minas Tirith. So I played Gondor, and Sean was playing Mordor,
Hmm.
and I think we were playing it the old scenario from the Blue Rule book with the new rules from the Hobbit rule book at the time. And we just had so much fun, and we've been meaning to do a siege event for a long, long time, but it's quite difficult to orchestrate that many castles for people to attack.
Mm.
Uh, but yeah, what would you like to see from a specific siege supplement, and what new models and new rules and potentially new scenarios would you like to see? So it's quite a big question, actually, thinking about it. But
um, the, my favourite scenario for ages was the old Two Towers Journey book, which came out in '06, I believe, and it had the huge scenario right at the back, which was Helm's Deep. It's 12 turns long. Gandalf arrives on turn 12, and you've got to kill Theoden, Aragorn, Gandalf. You got to break into the castle.
Yep.
Got to get a number of guys on the. And last year, Seven Stones finally encouraged me to finish building a Helm's Deep.
Oh, lovely.
So I took that with a Theoden Rides Out list, which was quite a lot of fun. But we got spanked quite a lot, unfortunately. So yeah, that siege was always huge fun because you got the detonation charge for the wall, you got the ballistas for the ladders. As you know, it always feels a lot more epic. You got the desperately defending, 500-point force inside the castle against 1,500 points outside the castle. And I used to have one of the old Warhammer Siege towers, and there used to be, I think I'm remembering from the Blue Ring rulebook, which had a huge siege section in it.
Yeah, it did.
So you could have the battering ram, you could have the siege towers, you have the ladders, and you could just have a lot of fun because it gave you guidelines for, like, you should have your attackers be roughly 3 times as many as the people inside. And here are what I would most like are some scenarios where it's not the same kind of siege over again. Maybe one of them is about a time pressure, so it's getting models into the castle by turn 10. Maybe one of them is a rescue mission. Maybe you've got to ride out from the castle to rescue one of your models and then come back in.
Like the White Rider from Return of the King. Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, no, definitely. I think new models. I'd love to see the old siege towers come back. I know they're not new per se, but they were such good models, and I'm really upset that I didn't get any when they were a thing. I'd love to see. I always forget the name of it, but the big dog head fiery
Grond.
That's the one. I'd love to see a model for that. I know it's not very practical, but it'd be awesome.
Well, it's pulled by 4 great beasts of Gorgoroth, and
cool.
It would be like Smaug size. It would be enormous.
It'd be in Forge World Resin, and it would be lovely. I think it'd be awesome. It'd be a lot of money, but it'd be awesome. Yeah. I'd love to see the little orc battering ram team, like from the film the extended film where they try and hit it with a normal battering ram and they all go up in the air. It's very funny. I guess it's all kind of evil related because what you see in the films is all evil related.
Imagine if they did a scenario where it's like the elves attacking Dol Guldur at the end of the War of the Ring.
That'd be awesome. Or I'm hoping at some point we get a supplement. It's a little bit of it's on topic, but we're going off topic a little bit. Where you have the Easterlings attacking Dale and Erebor in the War of the Ring era. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Because that's CG to an extent. And new rules, I'm not sure. New scenarios. I'd love to see a sort of scenario where it was very much, what's the right word? Espionage based. So you have a certain amount of models, like the old Century rules, where if you're out of 6, you have to roll a certain, and then it's kind of like you have to try and gather some information that will help you attack a certain point in the fortress, something like that. I think that'd be cool. Without rambling on too much, Sam Huddy, good guy, I think.
Yep.
Most memorable facepalm moment in a game, e.g., he's calling you out, mate. E.g., CJ called a heroic defense with Durbers against Bolg, and Bolg rolled 666 to wound. Ouch.
Yeah, but Durbert's passed both his fate rolls, so no.
There's not a lot you can do about that. Most memorable facepalm moment. Wow.
Well, I've got one which is not necessarily for me, but I had Dan Rea and his he had Radagast on Eagle, he had Gwaihir and 2 other Eagles, and I had a just kind of Moria mosh pit but it was contest to champ. So he's got Radagast on Eagle versus Durbert, and you only get points for killing stuff, so it's not wounding. So it's really difficult for Durberts to. But the first turn, I win the heroic move off. I then mug Radagast with Prowlers and Groblog and all the nasty bits. The Bat Swarm, by the way, for that one, Courage 2 failed to charge any Eagles the entire game.
Right.
But this is the point where Dan looks over to me and says, Radagast doesn't have Heroic Strike, does he? No. You know what's about to happen now. See.
Good.
So, but he then calls a Heroic Defense with Radagast. So the Prowlers with Piercing Strike go up to Strength 4, and then they're wounding for Trapped and +1, so they're wounding Eagles on a 4. So the Prowlers hacked the Eagle to pieces, and then I did the remaining strikes on Radagast. Right. And we got him down to 1 wound and no fate remaining. And then he said, right, so now we do the Throne Rider. He got a 1 and then got a 5 to wound, so Radagast died by falling off the Eagle.
That's unfortunate. That's so unfortunate.
Yeah. So contest to champs, and his leader didn't survive the first combat, so that was...
I think that happens a lot in that scenario, depending on how you play it. Most memorable for me, facepalm moment. There's probably been a few. I think the one I can think of off the top of my head is... It's not even that bad because we still drew, but having a model, getting into the final few turns and having a model 4 inches away from an objective that's free, and then just forgetting to move it for the last 3 turns, meaning I would have won.
Oh.
Yeah, that's that's sometimes you get caught up in the fights and you miss the objective. So always play the objective, I guess. Right, another one from Sean.
Yep.
Loving the comments. Should we play more story-based scenarios? I think what he's talking about is our first few gatherings as a smaller community at the time. We had a lot of emphasis on scenario play, and we did a lot of scenario days as opposed to events where there were prizes and such alike. I'm always happy to play whatever people. If people want to do a scenario, I'm always a big advocate. If people want to run an event, run it. If people will attend it, that's up to them. Could we run more scenario-based events? Yes. Would people come? That's up to them. It's very difficult to say. Would I like to play more scenario-based events? Yeah, of course. The game is very much about. The game itself is set around an aesthetic that we all love and enjoy. And I feel playing any scenarios that connect you to that first time you read it in the book, or the first time you saw it on the cinema screen, or at home with your friends and family, whatever. Yeah, I love that. I think we should do that. But it's you can only. I know that you guys are actually doing some of the Gondor at War books, aren't you, James and Sam and?
Yeah, Callum with his Pirates of the Caribbean Corsairs. Yeah,
I think I'm going to jump in at some point and join aside and see if I can help out. No, we should definitely do that. But again, if people want to run events, they're more than welcome to. But the calendar is very full.
Yeah,
trying to get league events in, albeit we haven't had that many. We've only had 3, or is it 2?
League events.
We've had 2, and we've got 1 coming up.
Let me check my calendar. 1, 2, yeah, and then we've got
in a couple of weeks.
We've got 1 next weekend, and then we've got 1 in September, 1 in October, and then the finale in November. So Jack has done a fantastic job of keeping the calendar pretty busy, because in addition to those, he's run 2 Darksphere tournaments, which have been great fun.
And we've done an event day at 40k, which was also good fun.
Yep. In terms of scenario play, I mean, I think the niche you could fill there is if in the back of Gondor at War there's a massive Pelennor field battle scenario, isn't there?
Yeah.
So that would be an opportunity for people to say, I'm never going to have 24 clansmen of Lamedon, but maybe between 6 of us we could get the resources together
I
to
might
play this
see
game.
what we did at Christmas a couple of years ago is we actually did that scenario, and then we went to the Toby Carvery in Harlow and had dinner together, like a Christmas dinner early. I might see, because we haven't got any league events for December, I might do an early weekend before everyone gets busy for Christmas and see if people would be interested in doing something similar.
No, yeah.
We'll go on. We've got a few more.
Sure.
James Richardson has said, we've seen people build boards for Lake Town, Bree, Osgiliath, Goblin Town, Rohan, and others, obviously. What unusual board ideas do you think would be cool and themey?
2 ideas immediately spring to mind with that. I really like a 3D board. So I like Moria, I like Goblin Town, or even just a board that makes you play a little bit differently, like a Lake Town one. So what I would go for is Lothlorien with trees with the staircases and the platforms, so that you can have archers running between
I have
platforms in
seen
the trees.
some people have started to print things, 3D print things for that. I
Ooh.
might see if I know a guy. I might see if I can speak to him and get a couple of sets, and we'll see if we can make that happen.
Okay.
For me, let's have a think. I'd love to see something specific for Harad, like a South Gondor, as it was once called. Because they obviously, when the Harad came out, and I think I spoke about this. No, I haven't spoken about this before. The scenery was all very much stuff that was there, but obviously painted sandy. So I'd like to see something specific with maybe like villages, or like a big like tribal thing for the Mahud, or something like the Mongoli, like for the Canned. I think there's a lot of scope. I'd love to see. Sean's done that. There's been some amazing Shire boards out there, but I'd love to see like an Arnor destroyed type board. I think that would be awesome as well.
You excited by the Scouring of the Shire supplement coming out? You got any thoughts on that?
I think it's good. I love the models from it. I hope that if they're bringing it out, it means we might see Ruffians come back. I don't think I'd ever play them because you need about 400.
Yeah.
But I think they're cool, and I really like the Sharky and Worm dynamic. Their profiles are pretty cool. And the Hobbits on ponies are awesome models. And you can buy them now; they are available. It's not a plug, but they are there if you want to buy them. But yeah, I think it's cool, and I like the fact that we're getting new. I like the fact that we're getting old models back. I know that some people are not happy with the fact that they're having to combine things, but I think if they're having to combine things to make space for new things or old things returning, then I think it's good. It's only good for the hobby that we're getting models back.
Well, what Adam Troke's been saying at the last couple of Ardacons, and Jay Clare saying that it's to do with there's a certain number of product tags or barcodes that they're allowed to have at any given point. So I can see why they're combining stuff. But for a lot of people, like myself, I've got a Radagast on foot, I've got a Radagast on sled. I just want the eagle bit. So you're seeing quite a lot on the trade group of people saying, "I'm going to buy the set. Does anybody want to sell me their eagle rider?" But for me, I'm just gonna get a Radagast, and I'm gonna sort of file out the crotch and have him so that he can sit on a horse, and then I'll have him so I can just sit him on a eagle. Do a bit of conversion work.
I've got all of the Radagasts, so but it's nice to see that it's coming out as a one set for everything kind of thing. Also, because the Finecast Eagle before was not great, so that's nice to see that set come back. And all the packaging, the repackaging for like the Army of Dead Banner repackaging is really cool, and the Klansman and Axeman packaging is really cool, and the Lords of Umbar packaging is really cool. I like to see the new packaging. I think that's cool. The fact that it's actually on the box, I hope we'll find out this week if people have pre-ordered stuff. I love box art. I think it's nice to see if it comes back. Um, okay.
I feel most sorry for Kyrian above all, because now Madril is part of a blister with Faramir and Damrod,
Mhm.
and Kyrion has been completely surpassed by Huron the Tall, Ingold, maybe not Iolus, but you know Kyrion's selling point was he's a 3 might cheap hero for Gondor, and there's now quite a big selection of those with better special rules. Because Kyrion, he gets the +2 to his courage to charge a terrifying model, but then
I,
he hasn't really got the stat line to deal with a troll. So I
no,
just
but
wonder.
there's so much aura of dismay in the meta at the moment that perhaps having a courage, what is he, courage 4 base +1 because Gondor +2 because courage 7, probably not going to fail a
Hmm.
charge. Yeah, he might not kill stuff, but you're right. There's a lot of. It'd be interesting to see what the. Perhaps we could discuss it next time. The hierarchy for Minas Tirith heroes are at the moment. Haven't played them a lot since the new rules were a thing, so I can't comment. I just like Boromir, so I always pick him. Um,
Any
favorite.
more
So
questions?
yeah, we've got a couple more. Mr.
Okie
Huddy
dokie.
again.
Yep.
Favorite event on the EAHC and GBHL calendar. Favorite event on the EAHC. I'm going to do and. He has put and. So one from each or whatever. And the GBHL calendars and what makes them stand out for you.
Right. Well, for the East Anglia League Battle of the Five Army books, I wish I could come to that this year. I've done it the last 2 years,
Hmm.
and it's amazing because you have a very unique tournament format where you've got the old blue Five Army books.
Yeah, so Sean started it. I think this is the fourth year, or maybe it might even be the fifth year. Um, no, we've only been running for 4 years, so I think we've had it every year that we've been a community. And Sean, you had the five army books, the five blue books before we had the all-in-one book that we've got now, um, and essentially you would have a team captain and three people in each team, or four, depending on how many. And the event is 555 points because it's the Battle of the Five Army Books. Um, and you have to select forces. You can play multiple during the day. I think it's 4 scenarios, and you have to select forces, but you can't clash with each other. So,
Hmm.
from the old books, for instance, if you had Fallen Realms, you could have an Urukai player, Easting player, Harad player, a Canned player. You could have, um, from Three Peoples, you had dwarfs, elves, other elves, hobbits if you wanted, um,
Somebody had
Treebeards.
Treebeard and Three Ents. Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember that
Treebeard,
one.
three Ents. You could have White Council, Kings of Men. Again, you had Minas Tirith, Rohan, Numenor, um, and then what we
Fiefdoms.
what we did when they added in the Hobbit stuff, when Sean added those armies in, because some people only played those armies, they fell into the respected books where we fought best. So,
Hmm.
um, forget their name. Gundabad's went into the Mori and Angmar section, as same with Azog's Hunters, and then Dwarves went into the Free People, and then it's just a really fun day, and you see some very different armies because you can't share heroes,
Hmm.
even if they appear in multiple lists. You can't share heroes, so you get to see a lot of profiles that you don't necessarily normally see. And I'm completely stealing all of your thunder from your favorite event. But I think it's a really good event, and if anyone can get to it next year, I think it's sold out at the moment for this year. Sean has had a few dropouts, and I've swapped teams because I wanted to play Mordor because that's what I'm playing at the moment. Um,
I think Sam did advertise yesterday there is a slot in the Mordor team. I don't know if it's been filled,
oh,
but
okay.
yeah,
So
you've sold it so spectacularly. Uh, I didn't need to, but
yeah,
last year it's just because it allows you to play something fun and weird. And last year I did, for example, Cirith Ungol.
hmm
So I had Gorbag, the old Shag Rat, the sort
hmm
of smaller figure, a Taskmaster, and Shelob. So
yeah, I
it was
love that.
just like It was just like Frodo and Sam's journey through Mordor.
I love that. It's so cool.
Yeah, you play Shelob because you're just like, when are you ever going to play Shelob? It's a 90-point independent hero with one attack, and it can run away when it's wounded. But then you actually play it, and people are really scared of it
Oh,
because
she still gets the extra attack if she charges, doesn't she?
yeah, and then you stick her
Yeah.
next to a banner, and she's got 3 attacks to win the fight, and then she's a monster. So however spiders do hurling, she hurls.
Mm.
And under the old rules, when you could hurl in every which way direction, I used to keep entire cavalry units just hiding around the back
Yeah,
away
because
from her.
she can run over everything. I think
Yep.
I don't think she's as bad as. I think she's a pretty fun profile anyway. And your favourite GBHL event, if you have one?
Oh,
It can be Ardicon, I suppose. It's not specifically a GBHL event, but
no, yeah. I probably would pick Ardacon only because it was the first event I ever did. So
Mhm.
when I got back into the hobby in about March 2017,
Yeah,
I didn't go to any tournaments. I didn't have any local players. I just used to go and play the odd game against my Games Workshop store manager,
right.
um, and then I found the GBHL Facebook group, which, if you're not on it, get on it because that's where
Mhm.
all the news and all the exciting things happen. And they said, yeah, go to Manchester. And Manchester's a cheap tournament for me anyway because
Yep.
I went to uni there. So
Okay.
I got loads of friends that still live there, so I don't have to pay for hotels.
Ah, it's always
So
good. It's always good when you can stay with a mate.
So I went there and I had Martin Seed and Luke Midgley take me under their wing and
Both
teach me
lovely
the.
guys, by the way.
Yep. And actually, a shout out to Ed Ball. Don't know if he'll ever hear it, but I had no clue who he was. I just bumped into him.
He's also a lovely
Um,
guy.
yeah, I just bumped into him before the tournament started, and I said, "Hey, I'm brand new to this. Can you give me any advice?" And he sat down for a good 20 minutes or so, saying, "This is the current meta, and these are the kinds of armies you'll face. What have you got? Okay, you should use it like this." So I was very grateful to him for that. But
Good lad.
it's such a international mesh, isn't it, Ardacon? Because you have teams from as far as Australia
Yeah,
and New
everywhere.
Zealand. Yeah, people that you'll never play in any other circumstance.
No.
So that's probably my favorite. Right, your favorites?
Uh, EAHC event. Anyone I'm running? No, I'm joking. Favorite EAHC event. There's been so many. I really enjoyed. We haven't done it this year yet. I know Tom was talking about it, but I really enjoy our Battle Company event last year. That was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Again, because it's very different to, and people are prepared to start new armies because you only need like a box of models and maybe a couple of blisters or something. I love battle companies anyway, so I'll probably pick a battle companies. My favorite GBHL event for nostalgia purposes, probably Desolation Stockport, just because it was one of my first tournaments. It wasn't my first tournament, but that venue doesn't host tournaments anymore, which is a shame. Um, but yeah, one of my favorite events. You get to see loads of people that you might not have seen for a while because it's kind of central for most of the country. Like it's not a million miles away for us, but it's a Element Games has got a lot better as a venue as well. Since it got taken over. Oh, sorry, the Northwest Gaming Centre has got a lot better as a venue since Element Games took over.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll probably have to go for that one. I'm going to crack on because we've still got the big discussion point at some point, and I'm worried that this is going to end up being like 2.5 hours long. Um, your
Sorry, I
favorite
do ramble.
scenario? No, no, not at all, mate. Not at all. You're editing it, so anyway. Your
Yeah.
favorite scenario and why? Mine's whole ground because it's random, and I enjoy that, and I love watching people stress about it. And I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, it is what it is. I really do enjoy it, especially now that I have Gurits because it makes it so much easier for me. What
Yeah.
about you?
Um, yeah, so I said the Helm's Deep was my favorite scenario, but if it's from the 12 scenarios
Oh,
we've
sorry.
currently got, no, yeah, I
Yeah.
wasn't sure.
I guess we'll do favorite match play scenario, and then you can
Yep.
have a favorite narrative scenario.
Well, I wish they'd do a full Helm's Deep Siege again scenario because I might be wrong, but I don't think there currently is one. There's one for the Deeping Wall is breached in the Armies of Lord of the Rings book, but I'd like
Okay.
to do one for the whole. Siege. But in terms of the 12 narrative scenarios,
You never know. Rohan at War might be a thing one day. You never know.
strongly hinted in it. Yeah, 12. I like Recon and Storm the Camp, but most people don't.
No, I love both. I think they're both fun.
Because I've compared it to Recon is like British Bulldog with rules.
Somewhat, yeah, I guess.
And one that I've done a complete switch on is Seize the Prize, because most people get, it's right, heroic march, and now we do a heroic move, and whoever wins that has won the game. Yes, to an extent, but there's also an element to which I kind of view it like a game of rugby. You've got the parcel, and you're trying to go and score the try down the other end of the field, and you've got to position yourself to block off. I mean, it can be frustrating if, for example, you've got no big killy heroes that can break through the shield wall to the back, or if you've got no magic to stop them running away. Yeah. Or heroic march is it's become very necessary in a lot of scenarios, and for Lake Town that I play a lot, there's often a question of, do I take a militia captain that has march, or do I take Hilda, who doesn't have any useful heroic? She's got strength basically, but she gives the +1 to wound bubble for when you charge, which can force your opponent to waste might charging you. And I'm not sure, because Bard has the capacity, especially if you've got the girls with him, to chop through the first through ranks and get through to the relic bearer. But if your opponent's got like a fell beast or a bat swarm, and they just give it to that, and so see ya. So it can be incredibly fun. Yeah, you asked me to pick one, and I've basically said all of them. But apart from at the opposite end of the spectrum,
I think that gives a lot of credit to the scenarios, that they're all a lot more balanced and fun now.
It does. Heirlooms is the only one that I look at and go, oh no.
Yeah, I don't like that one.
Because it's got the Maelstrom deployment, which can throw a huge spanner in the works of anybody that's not got Madril or Gurits. And then on top of that, if you roll a 6, you've got the prize. It's very difficult to get it off you. So
yeah.
And I play lists that don't tend to have banners. So immediately, if I don't get the prize, then I've lost unless I steal it back.
Fair.
So anyway, what's your scenarios?
Whole ground for match play, and narratively, I don't know. I haven't played a narrative scenario for a while. Shame on me. If I'm going off the old ones, it was probably I'll go for Siege. I like a Siege game. It's fun. Right, tactics for using a Mumak. I have never used one, so unfortunately, I can't answer that question, Stephen.
My prize and joy model is a converted Mumak that I did way back in 2005, 6, something like that, and it's got all the sigils painted on it before that became a rule. It's got the Mahud Beastmaster Chieftain on the front. It's got all the arrows stuck into the body.
Awesome.
Yeah, and
you've never used it.
Well, I've used it in fun games, but never competitively. Because here's the thing: if you've got 3 might points to call heroic moves with, if you've got the Beastmaster Chieftain, so if you lose the roll off, then you've got an enormous point sink that's just being hacked to pieces and could potentially turn around and stomp your own troops. Then they did the Royal Beastmaster Chieftain with with what Tom Hawker calls the heroic nope. So that's quite annoying, because you have to spend 2 might every turn to make sure that you can contest it so it doesn't come and squash you. But the only time I've played one was at the Strider Cup, which I should have shouted out on the favourite tournaments, because that is ridiculously fun. And I had Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, twins, and Army of the Dead. So he ran out of might points, and now I've got Aragorn with a free heroic move every turn, just like, you're not going anywhere, and I'm going to hit you with Anduril until you die.
Fair enough.
Wasn't much fun for him.
I think what we'll do with that question, although CJ has kind of covered it a little bit, is I know Tom has used him a couple times this year, so I will ask Tom to come on next time, and
Okay.
I will ask him that very question because he's used it this year and he did quite well with it. So,
Who's the guy on the GBHL that is
oh,
very famous? Is it Dan
Mr.
Entwistle?
Entwistle, yeah,
Yeah.
lovely guy. I love Dan. He's a great guy. Yeah, Dan has used double Mumac. I think he's used 4 at an event in Ripon, or 5.
Why?
Um, just because he loves them, and they are fun and they are quirky, and I think they're cool.
Can't
Um,
pick up the prize. You can't pick up the heirloom. You just got to squash your opponent to
yeah, you
death.
just trample people. It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last question, and we've saved it for last because although we've talked a lot,
Yeah.
um,
Sure.
it's quite a big one. Sean has asked, discuss the importance of enforcing a 1-inch back away move. Now, I know when I discussed this with
Uh,
you earlier, you had some thoughts initially, but wanted to save them. So I'll let you go first.
yeah. Sure. I mean, look, if you're not at a GBHL 100-point event, then I would be very lax about that sort of thing.
Mhm.
It's just unless, for example, you've got models who rely on your opponent being trapped.
Well, that's why
Or
I asked you because you play an army that essentially
yeah,
gets a lot of benefits from having an enemy that has trap models. So,
yeah. I mean, nobody's perfect, and you're getting it. And similarly, I also have had a couple of games recently where my opponent is sort of measuring to move his model and then sort of scuffling it forward about half an inch.
right.
Um, and it's a similar thing where you're like, you don't want to be Captain Pedantic
hmm
and just go, you know, oh, be very careful with your measurements there. Is that not a full inch? Is it not? No, because
I
yeah.
guess I guess for me, it is important, especially with the amount of shield wall that's currently in the game.
Oh yeah.
For armies like yours, where there is a bonus for having models that you're fighting that are trapped. I guess for me, it's entirely dependent on how you approach it. If you say to your opponent at the start of the game, "Listen, I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to be overly gamey or unsporting, but
hmm
if we could perhaps, I have a measuring stick that is an inch. If we could just perhaps, ensure that we use that both of us, and you make it a thing where it's both of you, and you're not just calling them out for it per
hmm
se. Um,
If
but
it's a competitive event and there are potential podium places on the line in this game, or as a result of
mhm.
this game and future games, then maybe I would start saying no. I need it to be a full inch, otherwise I've got double dice.
Well, no, me neither generally, but I mean, it comes up, and it's for me. I'll only ever probably call it out if I've put my models in a scenario where he's definitely should be trapped, and then they've managed to move half a
Mm.
millimeter, and no, I'm not, or you definitely are, and then I would be a bit pedantic about it. But generally, I think it's important.
Well,
In
for
this,
trapping, something else I do is if I say, look, between that model, this model, and this model, he's in a triangle, which means it's physically impossible for him to back away. And
yeah,
I'll make
true,
that clear.
true. Um, I guess it is important, Sean. Enforcing it. I, I don't know how you enforce it without. You could ask. Um, you can't physically make your opponent move their models, and you can't really
Hmm.
move them for him. So, or them. Sorry, it's not just a gender-specific game. Okay, while we're here, quickly, I'll give our next league event a quick shout out because I know we've had a couple of people who can't attend anymore, so there might be a couple of spaces. Um, if you're in our community and you're interested in coming, just click on the events page, send Jack a message, see what's available, and attend. That'd be really cool. Be nice to have a full list of attendees. Uh, let's see what East Anglia events we have coming up quickly. Give them a quick plug while we're here.
Battle of the Five Army Books,
Battle of
13th
Five
of
Armies book,
July.
30th of July. Yep, and we've also got Middle Earth in Middle England, which I believe is on the 20th of July. Um,
Ah.
which is run by the Tysos, Jake and George. Paul's given free reign, and they're running an event, and it's a 700-point event. It's just casual. I know they've still got tickets, and it's a really nice venue, and the bakery nearby is really good. Former Josh, before I was on a diet, enjoyed that bakery a lot.
How much have you lost so far? It was 7 stone last time I checked.
Yeah, I lost 7 stone 1. I put a little bit back on where I had a week off because I hurt my knee and I couldn't really do anything. But I've lost most of that again now. So yeah, I've lost 7 stone around
Well
that.
done.
Thank you, mate. Trying to get to 8 stone before my holiday in August. So I've got about 6 weeks or 7 weeks, so it's definitely doable. But yeah, I think we're done. Actually, I think that's I don't want to abruptly end it, but
No
so if you have listened to it all, thank you very much. I will put a post on the East Anglia page for questions for the next one. Actually, we've got some for me and Jack, but whoever we record this with next, it could be CJ again, it could be Jack, it could be all 3 of us, it might not be me at all. And if you're finding us through YouTube somehow, if you've stumbled across this rambling and you actually listened to it all when you're interested in asking a question for the next one or having a topic of conversation for us to discuss, please leave that in the comments below. Also like it, because people, not a massive YouTube nerd, but the algorithm is based on responses and likes and or dislikes. But don't dislike it for the sake of it. Please like it because it's nice. If you dislike it for a specific reason, please leave that below so we can work on it for the next one. Big thank you to everyone that left comments and questions and topics of discussion. Big thank you to CJ for jumping in and helping us with this one in terms of A, recording it with me, and B, he's going to stick it on the YouTube for us.
thank you for having me.
Not at all, mate. Anytime. And me and Jack are hoping to record. Is it this week we're looking? What day is it? Monday. Yeah, I think we're looking to record this week again. So you might get a couple a bit more back to back. And then I'll discuss with him or CJ or whoever about the next one and see if we can get I would like to get this at least bi-weekly, which I guess it is at the moment. But it'd be nice because I know Tom appreciates it while he's in his lorry. So big thank you to everyone again for listening. If you have got this far, big thank you to CJ for coming on. And we will leave it there, mate.